Here's a look at cumulative graphs. This cumulative graph here was taken from Applied Behavior Analysis, 2nd edition by Cooper, Huron, and Heward, page 139. And you'll notice that a cumulative graph is always either increasing or remaining stagnant. That's because it's keeping track of data that's accumulating. It's the total number of times something's happened. So, for instance, total number of breaths taken per day. That's always going to be increasing. You're never going to take any breaths away. So let's look at how to create one of these. We're going to do that in Excel. Here's some data, and it's comparing the total number of mans per session and the total number of self-injurious behavior, SIB, per session. This column just has the minutes, and this is the data. And for instance, here in minute 7, this 6 mans doesn't mean that 6 mans happened in minute 7. It means that 6 mans have occurred in or before minute 7. It's all accumulated. Same with in the SIB here in minute 14, they didn't have 25 incidents of SIB in the 14th minute, but that's all of the incidents of SIB up to that and including that point. I have asterisks here. That indicates when the intervention, which in this case was functional communication using a picture exchange communication system, PECS, was put in place. Another asterisk when we went back to baseline condition, and another one when we reintroduced the intervention. Now if we look at how to put this into a cumulative graph, we highlight the data that we want to graph. Okay, and we're going to insert a line graph because this cumulative graph is a line graph and we do want our data points to show. So there we have our cumulative graph comparing mans and SIB. Of course, we need to change this to grayscale to reduce any unwanted bias that could be created by color. We also want to make sure it's in Times New Roman. And we need to, well, first of all, I see I need to capitalize mans. Okay, and I need to make sure that my data is not connected across conditions. So it was here in the 7th minute that I introduced the intervention. So I need to go to the data points on 7, click on that one twice so only that data point is highlighted, format the data point, line color, no line, close. I need to do that on my SIB line as well. Format data point, line color, no line. Okay, I would need to do that again at the 12th minute and at the 17th minute. For time's sake, I'm not going to do that right now because you now know how to disconnect those points, and you need to include condition change lines, insert shape, align. Okay, the condition change line, since it is a condition change and not a phase change, it needs to be a solid line. I need to make sure it's straight up and down. I see, yep, in grayscale. And right there in between 6 and 7. Okay, you'd also include these condition change lines between the 11th and 12th and between the 16th and 17th because those are condition changes also. And we need to add some components here. Not format. Here we go. We got to get back to our chart layout. We're going to put the chart title above the chart, and we're going to title this the effects of functional communication training on total mans and SIB. Okay. We're going to title our x-axis, that's our primary horizontal axis, below the axis, and that is minutes. And we're going to title our y-axis, that's our primary vertical axis, with a rotated title, and that's going to be total incidence, because it's both the total incidence of mans and the total incidence of SIB. Okay? We need to label those condition changes, but we'll do that within our Word document. So I'll copy this. I'm going to insert it here. I already have a Word document that's properly formatted with an APA title page and running head, different running head on the first page than the second page. I've got it titled as a cumulative graph, and I paste it in. Now remember, you need to disconnect the data points across all condition changes, and you need to include a condition change line for each condition change. And now I need to label those conditions. I'm going to do that by inserting a text box. I'm going to draw a text box right here. I don't want this text box to have an outline. I just want to be able to type on my chart, and I'm going to have this one labeled up using Times New Roman. I'm going to have it labeled baseline, okay? And then you'll, of course, label this as functional communication training. I'm going to copy that text box and paste it, and then move it to my next condition. Label this FCT. You'll notice that the line disappeared in between here. I need to format this text box so that it doesn't have a fill. That way we'll be able to see no color for the fill. That way that line will continue through there. Okay? Now when you're labeling items by text boxes, which I showed you how to do when we did the bar graph, keep in mind that here the independent variable is the intervention. It's not minutes. Oftentimes we think of the independent variable as being the x-axis and the dependent variable being the y-axis. In ABA, most of the time, the independent variable is the intervention. So the independent variable in this case is functional communication training. And the dependent variables are either the mans, it's both mans and SIB. We're seeing how the independent variable, functional communication training, is affecting those target behaviors of increasing the total number of mans and decreasing the total number of self-injurious behavior. So there you've got cumulative graphs.